Hello everyone, I am hiking at Hofmaster, which as you can see has loads of hills and sand dunes and stuff like that. Basically, I'm trying to get ready for my hike with Lindsay. So it's like super cold out today. I feel like I could have had another layer on and I would have been happier, but maybe I'll warm up later. One of the things that I can't stop thinking about is that book I just finished, The Blue Tent, and I just loved it so much. Like, I just keep thinking about what it meant and what it meant to me. And then I also keep thinking about like how I heard about it. Like, I heard about it from Heather. Now, Heather is from America, so I mean, it's probably very unlikely we would have met outside of BookTube, but I suppose it's possible. But she's been living in Wales like forever, right? So like our paths never would have crossed. So there's that. And then there's the idea that this book, which is written by a Welsh author and is basically a UK book, is a book that I could not find at my library. I could not find it in our library district, and I couldn't even find it in the entire state of Michigan. Like, this is a book where there's no way I would have heard about it outside of BookTube, and there's no way I would have been able to find it without international booksellers. And like, it just makes me so happy that basically we have this community of people who love to read and love books that's so international, and that exposes us to books that we would never, look how beautiful, we would never have found otherwise. I'm so grateful. I just finished the book this afternoon, so it's hard to say what is going to stick with me over years or months, whatever. But one of the things that is kind of coming to the surface right now is this idea of identity, and how basically books help us discover the world around us and help us grow and help us connect to ideas we never would have encountered otherwise, but also how they kind of help us discover ourselves, and how like the way we see ourselves, we think we know ourselves better than anyone else, but is how we see ourselves accurate, and is it actually all that we are, or do books and connections to others help us discover parts of ourselves that we might not realize otherwise? Look at how these roots are like so interconnected and intertwined with each other. I think that's so cool. That is not a good thing to find on a hemlock. So that to me looked like hemlock woolly adelgid, which is this insect or bug or something that is like killing hemlock trees. However, loads of them have like this purple mark on them on the trunk, so I'm hoping that means that they've been treated. I'm not quite sure. So I'm about half a mile from the beach, and you can already hear the waves. I love it so much. Done with yoga. It's such a cold and rainy day, but I'm gonna stop by the library and then I'm going to just get some tea from this coffee shop and just sit and read, and it's gonna be amazing. Okay, so I had 2 library books on hold. One of them was Together by Jamie Oliver. Lauren from Lauren in the Books recommended that one. And then I also got A Man Named Doll, I think, which tons and tons of people recommended. So yeah, it should be good. So my book from Bert arrived, or my zine, I suppose you should say. I'm so excited to read it, but he sent it with this tea, which I'm not sure if it's from him or from Sean, but I am going to enjoy it with the book because since they were mailed together, I feel like they belong together and are meant to be enjoyed together. Hello everyone. So I'm about to go on a hike again, but I wanted to quickly tell you about all the books I have read over the past few days of mid-month book bash. There have been a lot. Basically, I'm ignoring Doris's prompt in just continuation with this theme of cheating. And I'm just reading whatever the heck I want, which typically has been kind of queer books, and that is because I'm trying to read as many of my queer LGBTQ sort of books from my own collection as I can in the month of April, which is to get my TBR down, but also just to expose myself to more of those books. And it's supposed to be for my Reading the K8 Rainbow book club that I'm in, but I don't think I've read a single kid book yet. So anyway, let me talk about those I've gotten to, and not all of these are queer, but a lot of them are. So first, on Thursday, since I cheated and started early, I read The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Agawa. This book has been raved about on BookTube quite a bit. Basically, it's about a housekeeper who ends up taking care of this former math professor sort of a fellow, and he is an absolute genius with numbers. However, basically due to a traumatic brain injury, he can only remember 80 minutes at a time, and then his memory restarts. So he can remember things that happened a long time ago, but as far as new memories, they kind of refresh themselves every 80 minutes. It is mostly about the connection that the housekeeper and him form, and about the relationship he also develops with her son. There's a lot of like found family sort of themes in here, and honestly, it's just super heartwarming. So a very good book and very short. It was actually the exact same number of pages as The Blue Tent. They're both 180. Okay. Then I read Real Queer America by Samantha Allen, who's a trans woman. This book is basically about how America is filled with people who identify as LGBTQIA+, and how they are not just limited to these super like liberal areas on the coasts, but they're everywhere, and that there's a whole bunch of people who really enjoy where they live, and they aren't going to move just because they feel the need to be in a more liberal area. Like, they're going to stay where they are. And it was just interesting, I guess, to read about that. I underlined loads, so I feel like I should have marked this. Basically, the author had a desire to revisit the red states that have kind of made her who she is. But I underlined loads of stuff, and I wish I would have marked it. Yeah, just because she said a lot about stats and different data things that I thought were super interesting. The other thing I'll say is like the footnotes. Basically, I want to reread the book only for the footnotes because she basically has tons of articles and books that I think sounded really interesting. But one of the things that I think is most important about this book is this idea that perhaps people's mindset will change just based on connections and relationships to people, and how some people who are seemingly quite conservative are changed by a relationship or connection to someone who identifies as LGBTQ plus IA, whatever. And yeah, I thought that was super interesting because I think that it's hard, like, who was it that said it's hard to hate up close? But I definitely like agree with that. Okay, then the book that my professor and another facilitator of the book club wrote years ago, and I'm finally getting around to reading, is Reading the Rainbow. This is LGBTQ inclusive literacy instruction in the elementary classroom. So this is a guide for teachers who want to include more LGBTQ texts in their room. Basically, there's a few different reasons why you would do this. One is because all kids deserve to have window books and mirror books. So books that allow them to glimpse into the lives of other people, and also books that allow them to see themselves in literature. And if you think about it, if you have a gay child in your class or some sort of queer child, whether they know they're queer or not, they are not seeing themselves in literature, and that's not fair to them that they are completely excluded from literature. You also have kids who come from different families, and maybe they're straight themselves, but they come from a family with two moms or two dads or a trans parent, and they also need to see themselves in literature. So there's that kind of idea. The other part is for the kids that do come from families with a mom, a dad, and where the whole family is heteronormative or whatever, and cis and all that sort of stuff. They deserve to see things from the lens of somebody that's different, because as I kind of mentioned about this book, when you have relationships and connections to people that are different from you, it really helps build empathy, and it really just shapes you as a human being. And those discussions that you can have surrounding books like this just make you into an amazing person. And so this book basically talks about how you could do that in your classroom. There's tons of resources in here, so this is kind of a book of books. You would want to read all the books that are in here if you are a teacher or interested in children's literature. And then there's one teacher in there that I know her classroom is not really that far from my house, and I seriously just want to go sit in her classroom for a day and learn from her, because I think it sounds absolutely amazing, and I'm just curious what she's able to do in her classroom. Then Bert's book came, his zine, I should say. This is Absolute Joy by Bert Pastore, and it was amazing. I loved it so much. I think that poetry kind of allows you to glimpse into someone's life in a way you can't through BookTube and that sort of thing, and you kind of see them at a deeper level. My favorite in here was, I think this is it. Yes. While Walking the Taft Trail, June. This one was my favorite. Just because I thought that it kind of spoke to this mindset that you could have approaching life, and how you can view everything through fresh eyes without labeling things, and just soak it up and just be in the moment. And I just found it so lovely. So that was my favorite, but all of these are good. It's a book of poetry, and they're all in different forms. So I don't know what form this is because I don't know about poetry, but some of them are more dense and others more spread out. And it was so great. And of course, Bert signed it for me because, you know, that's what I do. Then I read The Victorian Internet by Tom Standage. So a long, long time ago, Heather read another book by him, and I do have that one coming to me in the mail just because I thought it sounded really interesting because I love random nonfiction and nonfiction about all sorts of stuff. But this one, I was like, ooh, this sounds really interesting. So I ended up getting a used copy, and I ended up purposely getting an ex-library copy because it's from Leeds University, and I thought that was way cool. Anyway, unfortunately, it kind of looks like our library books too. I thought it would look like extra cool because it's from the UK, but besides that, it kind of looks the same as our library books. This is about the creation of the telegraph and just comparing it to the internet. I found it so fascinating about the journey on how they tried to create it. So at first it was kind of a visual messaging sort of thing, and then it became what we know it as today, I guess, if you still know it. My exposure to it has been the Titanic movie. That's about it. But basically like the tapping, the dots and the dashes and all that sort of stuff that it ended up becoming. But it was just really cool to read that story and compare it to the internet now. Like one of the things that happened is because, you know, dots and dashes, oh my gosh, it takes so long, right, to get a message across. They started using abbreviations. And I just think it's so funny, like all the conversations with my students, so often we encourage them to use formal language in their essays and in their writing, and we can't say like cuz, C-U-Z, and we can't say like IDK, and like we can't say like all these like internet abbreviations. We have to use formal language. And like I think sometimes teachers are like, oh, kids these days, blah, 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 blah. They're used to texting language and all this stuff. And like, no. Like that was going on then too, because the operators would try and abbreviate things to make it much easier. Other things that were really cool is like sometimes these telegraph operators were super swamped and messages would take a really long time to get through because they had a huge pile of them that they had to relay. And other times they were completely bored. So they would play games over the wires with like some other person that they had like never met or whatever. They would play checkers, and they like used like, they numbered all the boxes on a checkerboard, which I think they were already numbered. Like I think they're numbered in chess as well. And they would play games like that during their downtime, and they would just kind of like chat and do like I just thought that was fun. Like having a connection with someone you've never met and you can't even see. Like on BookTube, we have connections with people, but we can see them and we can hear their voice and all that sort of stuff. So I thought that was really interesting. And then also it talked about how much it changed like the speed of life. So we all know about Morse code and what Morse code is. Well, Morse is like a dude, and basically his wife died while he was away, and someone tried to tell him about it. But by the time he was able to receive the message and make it back home, his wife was already in the ground. So he had no chance to like say his goodbyes or like at least kind of have some sense of closure, like she was just in the ground. And so that I think was probably a huge motivator in him creating this code. And it really sped up the pace of life. And I think that maybe that's one reason our pace is so fast, is because we have the internet and we have texting and we have all these things that keep making it faster. All right, then I read 2 books today so far. It is like noon, 12:37. I didn't even wake up that early, but honestly, I skimmed through one of them because I didn't love it. So the first book I read is The Invisible Orientation, an Introduction to Asexuality. This book is super, super interesting, especially for people that have never really thought of what it could be like to be asexual, or that it even exists, or all that sort of thing. Like it is part of LGBTQ IA plus. But sometimes it's not considered part of that group because it's like more of an absence of something, as opposed to all the other ones are like a difference. Like this is a difference too, but anyway. I thought it was really interesting. It talked about a lot of different things, including like demisexuality, which is basically where you don't have celebrity crushes or crushes on people in books or anything like that. You have to get to know a person and then like your fire is lit and you are ready to go. So yeah, I thought this book was really interesting. It was a bit dated. I don't know when it came out, not a super long time ago, 2014. But you could just tell, and it's just like amazing how you could tell like that's not really that long ago, and you could still kind of tell that it was a bit out of date. And I would say maybe it's just like the way references and resources were mentioned. Something about this, well, in addition to the cover being rather boring, gave me an out-of-date vibe. But anyway, super good. And then finally, the book that I was not a fan of, well, it's called Like a House on Fire. It's coming out later in April. And it's not really that I was not really a fan of it. So basically, it tells the story of two women. One of them is a working mom. She basically has been a stay-at-home mom for a little bit. She has two kids, and she kind of like needs to go back to work. So she ends up interviewing for this job as an architect and ends up getting it. And the person that interviewed her, who becomes her boss, is just like this powerhouse, like this like career woman, like super masculine in the way that she appears at work. That sounds like I'm talking about a physical description. The way that she encounters work, just because they're in architecture, which is kind of male dominated. And to get ahead, this woman kind of feels like she has to act in like this dominant, masculine sort of a way. Anyway, she's very beautiful, and they become really good friends, kind of like above and beyond what you should probably be friendly with as far as your boss. They're texting each other. Like she ends up being the first person that, I forgot their names. I think it's Jane and something with an M. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She becomes basically like the first person that our main character talks to in the morning. Like they'll text first thing when they wake up. They'll text right before bed. Their relationship is just getting very, very, very close. And meanwhile, this mom is just kind of frustrated with her life and with being a parent and with like being with the same guy and boring sex and all this sort of stuff. And they just kind of get closer and closer and closer as female friends and go through life together in a few different kind of traumatic situations that each of them deal with. And eventually they end up together. And so it's kind of the story of their love story, so to say. I guess I'm questioning that because it seems very like lusty, but regardless, no judgment. I just didn't love it because it seemed like the whole book was about sex, and also it seemed like, well, I just didn't like the boss. I just thought she was such an asshole. Like I just did not like her. And so I know like I should be able to rise above it and like the book, even if I didn't like the main characters. And the mom was really passive at the beginning, but she kind of changed towards the end and became more assertive. But yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan. It was okay. Maybe read it if you think that that's something you might be interested in. I just couldn't connect to the main characters, and that kind of ruined it for me. So those are all the books I've read since Thursday morning. I'm going to keep reading, plowing through. We still have the rest of today, which I'm going to go to the library in a second and get Razorblade Tears, then go for a hike. Then I'll probably read some more tonight. And then tomorrow I have to work for a lot of the day. So I think that tomorrow will be a harder day to read, but no worries. I probably need a break from reading after reading, like yesterday I read 5 books. Today I've already read 2. I mean, like, it's kind of insane. And granted, I was skimming this one because I wasn't the biggest fan. But it'll probably be good for me to be with human beings and not in my apartment reading. And then on Monday, I'm going back to work. So that will be another hard day to read just because living the work life. And when I get back from spring break, it's like bam, bam, bam. I have loads of meetings. Like every single day, I feel like I have a meeting either during the school day that I have to get ready for or after the school day that I have to stay late for. And I just feel like it's going to be insane, but only for a few weeks. And then it will slow down again, and then it will be summer vacation. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm gonna keep vlogging for mid-month book bash, but that is what I've read so far. Okay, so I love this building. There is a ballroom on the top floor and also a secret tunnel underneath that connects it to other parts of the city. It's also going to be on the 3rd season of Unsolved Mysteries as its library. And it should come out this summer, I think. I'm reading Uncommon Knowledge right now, and it's just like small little chapters. It would be good to like read while you're eating dinner or something like that, or eating breakfast every morning. But the part I'm reading right now is why most countries drive on the right side of the road, and I had no idea that most countries drive on the right side of the road. Like obviously Americans do, but like I know in the UK they drive on the left, and I just thought it just really depended on the country. I didn't realize that the right is like the majority. But basically, I learned that Sweden became the last country in like the continental part of Europe to switch to driving on the right-hand side of the road. This is the list of countries that people want to go to. United States is number 1, Canada. I feel like Canada should be above the United States. Like, I mean, in my opinion, I would rather. That's probably horrible to say. Sweden would be a cool place to live. Wales is not even on here. Wales, where are you? I would like to move to you. Now, you drink a bit too much for me, so that would be a struggle, but I just want to read by a castle. Do you know people eat kangaroos? It makes me so sad. I got to work a bit early today. Not by much though. I only have like 10 or 15 minutes to quickly eat lunch before work. I had church today, but because it's Palm Sunday, it lasted so long, and I actually had to leave before like it was even halfway done, just because otherwise I would be late for work. It is so nice outside today. Oh my gosh. Done with work. It's still light outside. I'm gonna go home, make dinner, read, and get ready for a school day tomorrow. So thank you guys for hanging out with me, and I will see you later.